So, what is the true nature of good and evil? I mean, really think about it. For thousands of years, this single question has been the engine driving philosophy, religion, you name it. Today, we're going to dive deep and break down the core arguments that try to answer it.
Now, this isn't just some abstract puzzle for philosophers to debate. It's the question that literally shapes our laws, our beliefs, our entire identity. So to even begin to answer it, we have to start with the only being in the universe that asks this question in the first place: us.
Okay, here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the human paradox, this weird combination of soul and body. Then we'll ask, where does morality even come from? Which of course leads us right to the famous problem of evil. From there, we'll explore why moral evil exists, and finally, what we're supposed to do about it.
Right, first up, before we can even begin to talk about good and evil, the source material we're looking at argues we have to understand the human being. This really unique creature that's kind of caught between two worlds, the physical and the metaphysical.
Just think about it for a second. We have a physical body, right? It gets hungry, it gets tired, but we also have a mind, a consciousness, a soul, if you will, that thinks about huge ideas like justice and love and, yep, good and evil. This duality, this is the stage where the whole moral drama plays out.
And what's so fascinating is how two absolute giants of philosophy saw this relationship so differently. For Plato, the body was basically a prison, a cage holding the soul back from a more perfect, ideal world. But then you have the philosopher Ibn Sina, who flips that idea on its head. He says no, the body isn't a prison, it's a tool. It's the very thing the soul needs to learn and grow in this world.
And this idea, the body as a tool, gets picked up and refined by other thinkers like Farabi and Ghazali. They essentially said, the body is our vehicle. It's how our senses gather all the raw data from the world, which we then use for deeper spiritual insight. So in this line of thinking, the body's not the enemy. It's a partner on this journey.
Okay, so if we're these complex beings, part body, part soul, the next logical question has to be, where do our ideas of right and wrong actually come from? Is it something handed down to us from above, or is it something we figure out for ourselves, using our own reason? And that question throws us right into one of the oldest puzzles in philosophy, the Euthyphron dilemma. It just perfectly frames the two sides. Is something good just because God says it is? Or does God tell us to do good things because those things are already good on their own?
So on one side, you've got what's called divine command theory. Thinkers like John Calvin basically argued that what's good is good only because God says so. If God commanded the opposite tomorrow, well, that would become the new good. Morality flows directly from divine will, period. But then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got philosophers like Spinoza. For him, morality isn't some command from the heavens, it's more like a law of nature we discover through reason. Good is whatever helps us thrive and be our true selves. Evil is whatever gets in the way of that. It's not about obedience, it's about understanding.
And you can see how this whole debate about where morality comes from sets up one of the biggest, most difficult challenges for anyone who believes in an all-powerful, all-good creator. And that is, of course, the problem of evil.
The philosopher J. Mackey framed it just perfectly with these 3 points. Look at them. 1. God can do anything. 2. God is perfectly good. 3. Evil exists. All 3 of those statements can't seem to be true at the same time, right? If the first 2 are true, the third one shouldn't be possible. That's the core of the challenge.
Now, to try and untangle this, philosophers usually split evil into 2 categories. First, you have natural evil, things like earthquakes and diseases that are outside our control. And then you have moral evil. That's the bad stuff that we as humans choose to do to each other. The source we're examining has an explanation for both.
So for natural evil, thinkers like Ibn Sina argued that evil isn't really a thing in itself. It's more of an absence of good, or just an unavoidable side effect of living in a physical world. The idea is that the material world is inherently imperfect, so it's always going to have flaws, like a thorn on a beautiful rose.
Okay, that makes some sense for natural evil. But here's the really tough part. What about moral evil? What about the awful things people choose to do? Why does that exist? Well, the source we're exploring lays out 3 main philosophical explanations.
The first idea, which has roots all the way back with Socrates, is that evil is basically just a form of ignorance. And this little story about the cat illustrates it perfectly. The cat has it made, the palace life, its highest good. But then it gets distracted by a mouse, a much lesser good. And in its ignorance, it chooses the mouse and loses everything. The argument is, that's us. We don't choose evil because we want evil, we just mistakenly chase after some lesser good we think will make us happy.
The second major explanation is one you've probably heard of. It's called the free will defense. The logic is pretty straightforward. For goodness to have any real meaning, it has to be chosen freely. A world full of free people who can choose good is way better than a world of perfect little robots who are just programmed to be good. But the cost of that freedom is the possibility that people will choose evil. And the third argument is what's known as the soul-making defense. The idea here is to think of our world as a kind of spiritual gym. The suffering and moral challenges we face aren't just random, pointless tragedies. They are the weights we have to lift, the obstacles that test us, build our character, and help our souls grow into something greater.
So, we've got these different explanations for why evil is in the world, but where does that leave us? What do we do now? Well, this is where the author of our source makes a really crucial turn. They argue that our job isn't to just understand evil, it's to actively fight back against it.
And the key to this fight is justice. But here's the thing, justice on its own isn't enough. As you can see here, if you have justice without any power to actually enforce it, you're just helpless. On the flip side, if you have power without any justice to guide it, well, that's just tyranny. To actually do good in the world, you need both.
This takes us right back to Spinoza. He believed that overcoming evil and achieving the highest good isn't a solo mission, it's a team sport. It requires a whole society where people actually unite, combine their strengths, and help each other out.
And this leads to what I think is the most powerful and important point of the entire analysis. There's an imbalance, an asymmetry between good and evil. Evil, because it goes against the natural order of things, has to be active. It has to organize itself to spread and survive. But goodness, because it's the natural state, often feels like it doesn't need to do anything. It just stays passive.
And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway from this whole philosophical deep dive. The answer to the problem of evil isn't a theory in a book. It's an active collective commitment. It's about goodness getting organized.
And so we're left with this final, really provocative question. The struggle isn't some abstract cosmic battle. It's a practical challenge of organization and action. Because if evil organizes, what's really stopping the good from doing the same?